Ah, you're back. I was wondering when you'd wander in again. The rain's been busy tonight, tapping on every roof from here to the cliffs. Come in, shake it off. The fire's still awake, and I've just brewed a fresh pot of tea. You look like you've had a long road behind you. Sit here. By the light, there's warmth enough for two. Some nights are made for songs, some for silence, and some for stories. I've got one for you tonight. It's an old one, from the far west, where the sea forgets names and the fields remember everything else. They call it The Bell of the Quiet Fields. A story about a boy, a lost sound, and the price of bringing it home. Listen close now. The world goes quiet when it remembers. Far west, where the fields tumble into cliffs and the sea begins with a sigh of mist, there was a small stone village. The roofs bowed to the wind. The doors spoke in creaks and whistles. There lived a boy named Aidan, thin as a reed, with eyes the color of rainwater. His mother seldom sang anymore. Winter had taken her voice the day the sea took his father. Since then, the village listened not to his people, but to the bog. At night, from the dark pools, came a trembling note. Not music, not noise, something in between, calling each listener by name. The elder said that once a bell had rung above the cliffs from a tower by the shore. While it sang, the bog was quiet, and people met each other's laughter halfway. But a storm broke the tower, the bell fell into the tide, and with it, sound itself lost its shape. Since then, the silence was not gentle. It waited, patient and sharp. That evening, Aidan walked toward the quiet fields, the stretch of bog that lay between land and sea. He sought the high cliff, where the wind sang honestly. There stood an ogham stone, old and carved like a tree, turned to rock. People said it was a threshold, where the veil between worlds grew thin. Aidan placed his hand on the stone, and the wind stopped listening to itself. From the mist emerged a figure not quite shadow, not quite woman. Her cloak was woven from moss. Her eyes were the color of the tide under clouds. You wish to bring back the sound that calls you home? She asked. I do, said Aidan. The village has forgotten its songs. The bell lies where the sea forgets names, she whispered. In the low tide you will find its throat, but every gift has a price. I've nothing to give. You do. She touched his chest. Your voice. At dawn, the mist clung to the sand like an old gall. The sea had pulled away, bearing the ribs of the earth. Aidan stepped across slippery weed and broken shells. Where the tower had stood, black stones rose like bones, and within them, a hollow mouth. Inside, deep down, something shimmered a bell, its bronze darkened by years, yet still beautiful. When his fingers brushed it, memories ran inside him. His father's laughter, the whisper of bread rising, his mother's lullaby, then a breath behind him. It's ours, said a voice like seaweed moving underwater. Three shapes rose from the tide, sea folk, half human, half memory, eyes gleaming with ship lights. The bell called you once, said Aidan, and it called us too. It calls all things, one answered. Sound is a road without walls. Then let me carry it home, Aidan said. Let it call the living again. The eldest, beard white as foam, nodded. Take it, but remember a sound is a path, not a door. Some who hear it will not return.
Under the tide where the dreams still sleep lies the bell that the angels keep. Rust and seaweed hide its skin, but its song still hums within. Ring, ring, quiet bell, call the hearts that once did dwell on the cliffs of loss and foam. Whisper softly, lead them home. Winds may cry and stones may fall, but the sea remembers all. Silver hands and salt white eyes guard the song that never dies. Ring, quiet bell, home is where the echoes.
Aiden dragged the bell across the sand. It weighed as much as a whole summer. The tide crept closer, erasing his footprints. Then the woman in moss appeared once more. To wake the bell, she said, you must give your voice. Without it, the bell will stay silent metal. Aiden thought of his mother, of her quiet evenings. If I lose my voice, who will speak to her when night falls? Those who come to your sound, the woman replied. Not all silence is empty. Some silence listens. He touched his throat. It was warm, small, his own. I agree. He said, you may ask one thing in return, murmured a sea spirit. Then let the bell never call those who live in the deep, said Aiden. Let it call only those who lost their way. The woman smiled. So be it. But remember, those who call others home may never cross the threshold themselves.
He gave his words to wake the day, so others might find their way. Silence grew where sound had been, yet love still spoke between. Hush now, my child, the night is kind. The wind will sing what you can't find. Hush now, my dear, the world will hear the heart you left behind. Bells can sleep and voices fade, still their echoes never trade. For in the hush of every shore, I hear you evermore. Hush now, my child, the night is kind. The wind will sing what you can't find. Hush now, my child, the night is kind. The wind will sing what you can't find.
They hung the bell on the last beam of the fallen tower. Evening came, gray and gold. The wind tasted the air, curious. Aiden grasped the rope. His heart beat not in his chest, but in his throat, where his voice had been. He pulled. The bell sound rolled out softly, like a mother's step before dawn, and settled over roofs, fields, and bogs. It reached every house, every heart. People came outside, still as birds listening for rain. An old woman lifted her shawl. A man stopped weeping. A child laughed in sleep. And the ball grew silent, as if someone had finally put away the bow. Aiden smiled soundlessly. The sea was his only echo. That night, when all had fallen asleep, a banshee came to the cliffs. Not the screaming kind of old tales, quiet, sorrowful, like a window left open in the rain. She stood by the bell and sang not of death, but of paths. Her song warned gently. A call awakens everyone lost, but not all who wake must fear. Some are only being found. Aidan listened, and in his silence a song began to grow not with sound, but with warmth, like a fire that doesn't smoke. The banshee stroked the bell. You asked, well, boy, she whispered. Now it calls only those who need a home inside themselves. And mine? Thought Aidan. From the dark, the sea replied, home is where your echo lives, even if you ring within. A week later, a fisherman walked back into the village, the one they thought the sea had taken. He said he'd heard a bell, clear as breath, and followed it through the fog. 2 weeks more, and the girl came from the city, saying she'd felt a small ringing inside her chest. And one gray afternoon, Aidan's mother began to sing again, at first a hum, then a full lullaby. Each note carried something of the bronze above the cliffs. Aidan listened and knew. That was his voice living through hers. At dusk, he rang the bell once more. From the fog came a tall man without a hat, smelling of salt and honey. He stood far away, not crossing the light. I heard it, he said, but I can't come in yet. Then he vanished, leaving only footsteps that sounded like old joy. Autumn came like a letter without return. Leaves burned quietly. The bog breathed mist. At the Oakham stone, the moss-cloaked woman appeared again. You gave your voice, she said, but the mortal world sometimes returns what is given honestly. She touched his throat. What returned was not his voice, but the gift of hearing the unspoken, the voices of those who could no longer find words. He could now hear the inner ringing of people, their hopes, fears, and memories. Aidan had become a little bell held in the hand of the world. One foggy evening, a tall man came again to their door. He said nothing. Aidan opened it, and sound fluttered like birds under a roof. His mother paused mid-song and smiled. You came back, she whispered. The man nodded, and at that moment, the bell above the cliffs rang by itself, a single, tender note closing the story.
Some walk far, some walk slow, following songs they used to know. Some find rest where shadows hide, some find home inside. Ring the bell, oh tender sound, let the lost be gently found. Every tear and every tide brings us home inside. Morning breaks, the sea stands still, echoes hum across the hill. Not all who wander say goodbye. Some just learn to fly. Ring the bell, oh tender sound, let the lost be gently found. Every tear and every tide brings us home inside. Morning breaks, the sea stands still, echoes hum across the hill. Not all who wander say goodbye. Some just learn to fly. Ring the bell, oh tender sound, let the lost be gently found. Every tear and every tide brings us home inside. Morning bells, the tender sound, let the lost be gently found. Every tear and every tide brings us home inside. Morning bells, oh tender sound, let the lost be gently found. Every tear and every tide brings us home inside. Morning bells.
So that's how it was. Funny thing, isn't it? You listen to a story like that, and when it ends, you're not sure if it truly ended, or if it's still going somewhere beyond the rain. The bell may have stopped ringing, but maybe that's just because you're too close to hear it. Some sounds live on in the spaces between breath and silence, between heartbeats and the wind sigh. You see, every tale worth telling is a circle. It doesn't close, it folds. Like the sea folding its waves, like hands folding a letter no one dares to send. They say Aiden grew up quiet, but never lonely. He tended the cliffs where the bell hung, mended ropes, listened to storms. Sometimes travelers would come lost, worn down, with eyes full of fog, and he would guide them toward the sound they didn't know they were seeking. Not a single one remembered his voice, but every one of them left lighter, as if they'd heard something they had been missing all their lives. And that's the thing about stories, my friend. They're not meant to shout. They're meant to stay, like footprints that don't mind being washed away, because they've already led someone home. The world's full of bells, some you can hear, some you can't. The one in your chest, that little tremor when you see a sunrise after a long night, or when you hear laughter from another room and don't even know who's laughing, that's one of them too. We mistake quiet for emptiness far too often. But quiet, real quiet, is where all things come back to rest. It's where the songs sleep until someone remembers to hum them again. So if you ever walk the western cliffs and feel the fog breathing against your face, stop for a moment. Close your eyes. The sea will tell you things you've forgotten, not in words, but in rhythm. You'll hear the bell again, faint and soft, a single note drifting up through the tide, and you'll remember that every loss carries its own echo, waiting to be heard by someone brave enough to listen. Maybe that's why we tell these tales here in the tavern, not to fill the silence, but to remind ourselves that silence listens back. Some nights, when the wind comes from the west, even I hear it, that low hum, like the memory of a promise. It rattles the bottles on the shelf, stirs the smoke, and for a moment, this whole place feels like it's breathing with the sea. You think it's strange? Maybe. But I like to believe it's Aiden or maybe the sea itself checking in, making sure we haven't forgotten how to listen. And when it happens, I do what I always do. I pour another cup of tea. I turn down the lanterns so the shadows can rest. I whisper a thank you to whatever lingers beyond the door. Then I sit here in the quiet and wait for the next traveler, for the next rainstorm, for the next story that will find its way in from the cold. Because that's what this tavern is, a small light in the dark where lost things come to warm themselves for a while. So take your time, friend. No need to rush back into the storm. The night's long and the kettle's still warm. Out there, the world hums its restless tune, but in here, we can keep a gentle rhythm. When you step out again, listen closely. Every raindrop, every gust of wind, every creak of the old sign above the door, they're all singing in their own way. And who knows, maybe one of them will carry the echo of that old bell. If you hear it even faintly, don't turn away. Just smile. It means you've remembered. Now go, walk softly, and may the quiet lead you home.